Welcome to MrClef.com's review of the Gilded Age, brought to you by Noble Review, concise review books. Mark Twain coined the term Gilded Age to refer to the time period of the late 19th century where it appeared as though everything on the outside was golden, but mostly a lot of people were suffering at the hands of a select few. In terms of the gold of the time, there was great industrialization and growth in the cities where immigration compensated for the high demand for labor. In terms of inventions, there was Edison's incandescent light bulb. Henry Bessemer had a process for eliminating impurities from pig iron so it could be mass-produced quickly. Alexander Graham Bell's telephone revolutionized communications. In terms of building projects, two immense ones were the Transcontinental Railroad, which connected the country, and the Brooklyn Bridge, which was the largest steel suspension bridge of its day. It connected Brooklyn to Manhattan. Some of the achievements of a select few are also seen as golden. Horatio Alger and others wrote dime novels which celebrated those who rose to power and fame at this time. Some saw these men as captains of industry, or leaders and role models which benefited society. However, many others didn't see them as so golden, but as corrupt robber barons who were out for their own good. Let's meet them. There was Cornelius Vanderbilt, who made a fortune in railroads. John D. Rockefeller controlled energy with Standard Oil. J.P. Morgan controlled much of the banks, and of course, Andrew Carnegie provided all of the steel needed to fuel industrialization. To control the steel industry, Carnegie bought out the raw materials and rail lines associated with production. This buying up of ingredients, so to speak, is called vertical integration. He also looked to buy out similar companies or merge with them. This is called horizontal integration. Robber barons did their best to control entire industries. Trusts formed when one company took over the stock of competing companies in trust agreements. This often led to monopolies where one huge corporation controlled almost the entire market. Once competition fizzled, prices could be manipulated. As for Carnegie, the wealth he amassed was quite massive, though he did use much of it for charity. In his book, The Gospel of Wealth, Carnegie said that the rich should be charitable and give back to society for the common good. He believed money should be donated to those wise enough to spend it properly. How did these men become so rich? Well, supporters said that it was hard work and education, or survival of the fittest, known as social Darwinism. However, opponents believed that corruption was the cause. In Edward Bellamy's utopian novel Looking Backward, he took a socialist critique of a scary future with the corruption of the trusts. There was much political corruption during the Gilded Age as well. President Grant's administration was associated with scandals. There was Credit Mobilier, where money was taken by politicians as railroads were being built, the salary grab, where Congress voted to give itself a 50% raise, and the whiskey ring, where politicians took whiskey tax money. But the gold standard of the corruption of the day was William M., or Boss Tweed's Tammany Hall political machine in New York. There, the Democratic Party controlled all powerful offices and were supported by a strong immigrant vote. Tweed was eventually thrown in prison as he abused power and illegally took money. There were a few laws passed during the Gilded Age which looked to limit the corruption. There was the Pendleton Act, which targeted the patronage system. It was passed after President Garfield was assassinated by an office seeker. The law provided for civil service tests to be taken by office seekers. To combat abuses of the railroads, the Interstate Commerce Act was passed. It provided for an Interstate Commerce Commission to look over the actions and prices of the powerful railroads. The Supreme Court justified the need for such a regulation over interstate commerce in the Wabash versus Illinois case. Most famously, the Sherman Anti-Trust Act was passed in 1890. It looked to combat those in restraint of trade. Although it was supposed to target trusts, it was at first used to break up unions. Clarification of this law occurred years later. As people worked difficult jobs in long hours at the time, unions emerged as the voice of organized labor. You need to know about the Knights of Labor and the American Federation of Labor. No bags and cups. The Knights were led by Terence Powderly. They were mainly unskilled and often striked. They were also instrumental in hiring African Americans and women. The AFL was led by Samuel Gompers, who was in favor of bread and butter issues, or major ones like hours and wages. The AFL was a craft union for those with specific jobs. They didn't strike as often and used collective bargaining to communicate between employees and employers. As far as the strikes of this time period, a bloody upheaval occurred in 1877 over wages on the railroad. This strike was broken up by President Hayes. In 1886, a bomb went off in Chicago's Haymarket Square. This explosion was blamed on anarchist union behavior and led to the vilification of unions. In 1892, violence erupted as workers attempted to unionize at Carnegie's steel plant. The strikers were arrested. In 1894, wages went down for those who worked to make Pullman cars. Strikers led by Eugene V. Debs stopped the trains in their tracks. However, President Cleveland broke up this strike and sided with the employers. He mostly wanted the mail to be delivered across state lines. So was the story for labor during the Gilded Age. Many of the injustices wouldn't be cleaned up until the progressive era of the 20th century. For a lesson on the progressive era, click here. For a lesson on immigration, click here. For more review, you can get free flashcards and review sheets at MrClef.com. We also invite you to check out Noble Review in both paperback and ebook formats. Best of luck on your tests.